It's January, and many people like to make New Year's resolutions at this time of year. Do you have some good goals for 2016? How about a goal to be a better person, to be honest and more committed to things and people? The value of the month this January is Ahau Nui, or patience. Punahou Chapel and Luke Center for Public Service are happy to have a guest with us in chapel, our president, Dr. Scott. Dr. Scott was born and raised on Oahu and himself attended Punahou School. He played baseball at Punahou and then went on to Stanford and later on to Harvard University. Dr. Scott returned home as the first Native Hawaiian president of Punahou School in 1994. He has 2 children here at Punahou, Buddy, a sophomore, and Tessa, a senior. Please welcome with me, Dr. Scott.
When you come back to the school that you went to, they dig up pictures of you in 6th grade. So this is me and Mrs. Godbold's class. Alan Tom is on the right. He lives in Seattle now. Peter Young was on the Big Island for a number of years. I think this is from my Na'opio from like 1964. You don't have any more pictures, do you? Okay, good. Well, that was one of the briefest introductions I've had. Fact is, I'm not the first, only the Native Hawaiian head of school. I'm a quarter Chinese, and so I was introduced in China as the first Chinese president of Punahou School. I'm a quarter Romanian, so my grandfather would want you to know that I'm the first Romanian president of Punahou School. And, only a quarter Hawaiian, yet that's what I'm identified with. So as I was coming across Middlefield, watching you come from the 6th grade, the best way for me to connect with you and to say something meaningful is to actually have me reflect a little bit about my 6th grade year. 1964, spring of 1964, I was in the 6th grade, the 2nd floor of Castle Hall. In 1964, Mr. Tam was like a 9th grader at Punahou School. Mrs. Robles, I think, was in preschool in 1964. They were building the chapel in 1964, so as we were trying to study, they had to dig very deep into Lily Pond to have this chapel secure. It didn't open until my 7th grade year, so that's how old I am. My switch teachers were Mrs. Stroud and Mrs. Godbold. And Mrs. Godbold taught English and social studies. And she could tell by my writing that I had something to say. I just was scared to talk in class. I stuttered. There are other people seemed much brighter than I was who could just get it out faster than I could. I was always thinking about what someone said 30 seconds ago. We were leaping to another topic. And I remember Mrs. Godbold holding me after class one day to give me back one of my papers. And she was from Virginia. And I could still hear her voice. She said, Mr. Scott, we are missing your voice in our conversations. And I had no idea what she was talking about. And she said, you need to speak up, young man. And I said, I'm a little scared. I'm kind of intimidated. She says, but I can tell by your writing. You have something to offer this class. And so it was teachers like that encourage you at a very early age that you never forget. The reason 6th grade is memorable for me also is that my parents moved into town right around this time of my 6th grade years, like January, February, around Carnival. We were living in Kailua. I was still playing baseball, Little League in Kailua, which meant that when my parents, both of whom worked at Hawaiian Telephone Company, picked us up after school around 4:15 or 4:30, we'd drive across the Pali, have baseball practice, and then come back to Kaiamaki to our home, our new home, and didn't start homework till about 8 or 8:30. There was a hip young group from England called the Beatles that landed in America in 1964. In 1964, the big groups locally or nationally hail from Detroit or Motortown, or their recording labels called Motown, people like Diana Ross and the Supremes, Smokey Robinson and the Miracles, the Temptations. But I think my most memorable part of being in sixth grade was that a couple of days before Thanksgiving, President Kennedy was assassinated. And Vice President Johnson became the President of the United States. So as we started the new year, I was thinking that new house, getting home late, uncertainty nationally and internationally, great sadness about a popular president being killed, and also thinking about all the uncertainty of moving to seventh grade. At that point, we had to wear shoes for the first time. There was a different dress code. We were in the old Bishop Hall. We were changing teachers for the first time, as you were next year. We had to pick a foreign language. And so I have a distinct memory of 1964. What you heard in my introduction was it was the short version, okay? I was at Punahou for 13 years, graduated in 1970, and then was on the mainland for 24 years, either going to school or working in a school. And my journey wasn't quite as linear as the introduction made it seem. I took the 5-year plan to get through college because I took a year off. At the end of my sophomore year in college, I was cut from the Stanford baseball team, broke up with my girlfriend. I think the dog died back at home. Every time I was getting a C in a class, I would just drop it, so I wasn't sure if I was a freshman or a sophomore. I felt I was wasting my parents' money, so I said, Dad, I want to take a year off. It's the first time we had an argument. I said, take a year off. He thought I was dropping out of college. But I came back to Punahou for a year, served as an intern in the counseling department in the academy. And that's when I had a chance to hang out with my former teachers, coaches, counselors, dean. And I saw the life of service that they were leading, full, joyful. I thought about what I had received from my teachers and the joy and the fulfillment they were receiving, giving it to other students. And it was during that year that I decided to go into teaching. Went back to college much more focused, much more disciplined, worked in a school in Monterey, California, as you heard, went east to go to graduate school, and then I headed a school in Oregon, in Portland, for 9 years before coming back here. So all that adds up to 24 years, and so when I came back in 1994, I didn't feel I came back. I feel that I was called back. The Punahou presidency is a job that comes open about every 25 years or so. My predecessor, Dr. McPhee, was here for 26 years. He gave me a diploma in 1970. His predecessor, Dr. Fox, was here for 24 years. He started the year after my father graduated in 1943. And so when I was applying for the job, the search committee of the Board of Trustees kept asking me a question. They kept asking me, how long are you planning to stay? And I thought, well, that's a pretty presumptuous question, and even more presumptuous to try to answer it. But by the third or fourth time they asked it, I said, I better find an answer to this question, otherwise I may not get this job. And so I blurted out, I want to stay for 10 rigorous years, at the end of which you need to decide, as my boss, as the Board of Trustees, and I need to decide separately whether it's a good match. Everyone in the room seemed appeased by that answer. I got the job, obviously. Loved working here. There's a lot to do. But at the end of year 10, I said to myself, we need to honor our promise to one another. But it wasn't a good time to think about leaving because we were building the Case Middle School at that time. We were raising money for it. But at the end of year 12, the trustees said, we need to honor our promise to one another, so they gave me a month off right in January to go back to school. So I went to Columbia University, There's a teacher's college there. And I had a chance to read philosophy and write essays and hang out with other heads of schools. And at that month, I wrote a letter to my board of trustees, our board, saying, if I stay for another 12 years, Punahou needs to change. Punahou needs to do a better job of serving the community. Punahou needs to be a private school that serves a greater public purpose. And so I laid out the next 12 years, and I said, we need to make a commitment to financial aid. It's not enough to be sending our students out to do service in the community. Punahou needs to become more representative of the community. And so our mantra for the last several years has been, if you are admitted to Punahou, we want you to come here regardless of your financial circumstances. Your class represents the economic and ethnic diversity of Honolulu. And so that became a change. The Luke Center for Public Service was established right around this time. The Pu'eo program, which has us reach out to work in partnership with public schools, was started at this time. I started to challenge your teachers about serving a greater public purpose through their thoughtfulness in their teaching. Punahou teachers are given the encouragement, the support financially to create a curriculum and program. And now they have an opportunity to share that learning and to learn from their public and private school counterparts. There's also a Punahou alum, a former sixth grader, who right around that time visited Punahou and challenged not only the senior class, but challenged his former school to live a greater public life of service. So I want to share some of what he had to say. Senator-elect Barack Obama came to Punahou 11 years ago. It was the day before Christmas break, and he talked to the class of 2005 in this chapel. I'm going to show you two brief clips, total about 6 minutes, of a former Punahou sixth grader talking about the impact of his teachers on his life. And also he asks, or he responds to a question by one of the Luke leaders who said, what advice do you have for Punahou students? Two things. You'll notice no gray hair. And as you hear him speak, and he hadn't even taken the oath of office yet to be a senator, I wonder if he was thinking about the presidency as he asked and challenges Punahou students to dream big. So Sean, let's run this.
There was something about this place and this school that embraced me, gave me support, gave me encouragement, and allowed me to grow and to prosper. And so I'm extraordinarily grateful to this school for the wonderful education that it gives to all of you and the wonderful education that it gave to me. And part of the thing that I'm most grateful for, I think, at Punahou, even though sometimes I think all of us feel a little skeptical as young people, we're rebelling and pushing away from authority. One of the things that Punahou, I think, has always been about is trying to instill some values. I was mentioning that one of the courses that I had to take was in the Roundhouse. I had to take a course in ethics. And it's pretty unusual for a school to take the time to teach, or at least to get young people to think about what are the values that they care about. What does it mean to live in a diverse society? What does it mean to treat people with respect and dignity? What are our larger responsibilities beyond ourselves? What do we owe other people who are less fortunate than ourselves? What kinds of claims can we make in terms of helping to create the kind of society that benefits everybody and not just some people? And the fact that Punahou forces you to think about those things is critical. It's absolutely important. So I'm just thankful that so many of the faculty and the staff here were able to provide that kind of infrastructure to my life that has served me well throughout. Now, I also want to let you know, though, that, and then I'll stop and we can start asking some questions because I don't want to give a long speech, that for those of you who are kind of goof-offs and slackers and don't always do your work on time and sometimes talk back to your teachers when you shouldn't, and get your college applications in late and all that stuff, there is hope for you. Because I by no means was a perfect student, and I wasn't a perfect classmate. I think that there's some revisionist history that takes place after the fact when you're successful, where everybody says, oh yeah, he was always wonderful, and I always knew that he'd make something of himself. That's not true. I was somebody who I think was still finding myself when I was here and made a lot of mistakes. And one of the luxuries that I think all of you have is that when you make mistakes here, oftentimes you get second chances and third chances and fourth chances. And there are a lot of young people in America and here in Hawaii who don't always get those second chances and third chances. And so I guess to those of you who fall in the same category that I did, young people with lots of potential who have not realized all that potential yet, hopefully one of the things you start thinking about is the fact that you do get these second chances, and Punahou does give you this enormous support, but you do have some responsibilities that you have to make use of. To those who much is given, much is expected. And that's part of, I think, your task is to recognize that you're extraordinarily privileged, and that means that you have to take some responsibility for making this world a better place. So I congratulate the Luke students for the wonderful public service that they're already engaged in and already doing, and I will shut up and start answering some questions. So, thank you.
Senator Obama, if you're able to share but one piece of advice with us, what would it be and why?
I think this is connected to what I said earlier. Dream big dreams, I think, is my best advice. I think that people usually sell themselves short. Especially in this culture, most of the time, the biggest ambition that you can have is to be rich, right? To have like a really nice house, really nice ride. In Hawaii, clothes don't matter as much. But when you're on the mainland, you get the Armani suit here. Here, Rains will be okay. Aloha shirt. But that sense of that your ambitions are all geared towards material goods and money, I think it displays a poverty of ambition. It displays a poverty of ambition. My biggest advice to everybody here is, think big about what you want to do with your life. Which isn't to say that you shouldn't take satisfaction in what you have, and you shouldn't appreciate what's around you. But the world is big out there, and everybody here could be doing so much in whatever field you decide is interesting to you. I mean, if you're into medicine, then your dream should be to figure out how to cure AIDS or do something about cancer. I mean, if you're interested in the law, then you should want to be on the Supreme Court. If you're into music, then you should want to, either hit #1 on the Billboard charts or to write a symphony or, don't just be satisfied with what's right in front of you. Because, the world offers so many opportunities, and I think all of you have so much potential and so much talent. It's just a matter of making sure that you dig deep and recognizing once you dream those big dreams that you're going to have to work pretty hard to achieve them. And there's nothing wrong with some hard work. It actually, the older I get, the more satisfaction I have, not from doing well those things that come naturally to me, but actually learning how to do things that don't come naturally to me. And seeing the effort pay off by getting better at things that maybe I wasn't so good at first. So, thank you so much, everybody. I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Right after he spoke, we had to quickly lead him out of the chapel so he could get to lunch with his family. And as we were crossing middle field back to his car, he said, make Punahou lead. And that came at a time I was writing that letter to my board of trustees. This is a Punahou diploma. It's in this really wonderful leather blue case. I hope to give you one in 2022. This is me giving a diploma to, I think, the class of 2010 or so. So at graduation, every year, before these diplomas are handed out, I talk to the seniors about what it means to Punahou graduate. And I say to them, first of all, this diploma says, this diploma is awarded by Punahou School on vote of the trustees to, and then it's going to have your name in it, in testimony of the satisfactory completion of the course of study prescribed for graduation. And it's signed by the president of the school and signed by the chairman of the board of trustees. Some of your teachers have one of these. Some of your teachers' kids have one of these. Pretty understated, don't you think, given how hard you're about to work for it and how much your parents are paying for it. But what I tell the seniors is that this is more than a diploma. It's a symbol. It's a symbol of the gift of a Punahou education. A gift given to you, as you know, by your parents, your families. A gift given to you by your teachers. And as you travel through Punahou, you'll understand that this is a gift given to you by one another. The seniors are starting to feel that right now. And so the diploma is really a promise. It's a promise that you'll make to one another and to the people most responsible for that gift of a Punahou education, that you're going to take your keen intellects, your passion, extraordinary talent, and you will ultimately make another life better by serving. And that's a promise you're going to make to one another. So everywhere you go with it, every time you look at it, it'll be a reminder of that promise. You're halfway through the only sixth grade year you'll ever have in your life. Make it extraordinary. Make it wonderful. And make it a time where you rededicate yourself to the gift. I appreciate your attention. Mahalo.